Hi everybody, Dan here. I'm assuming that you have watched the Brooks Dieterlein YouTube video on ethical courage that appeared in the content folder right above this screencast. So let's talk about it. She defined ethical courage as our ability to act from our hearts in the face of fear. And she suggested that this is a skill that we can build with practice, and that it generally occurs in social situations when we don't always speak up. And maybe you can think of times, I know I can, when I did not speak up, and I felt afterwards that I should have. Well, I felt even then that I should have, and I didn't. Now, I'll give you an example. Many years ago, when I first got into sales, there was a gentleman in my Toastmasters club who kept on asking me to join his company. And I finally did it. He was a good friend. And I thought, well, this might be fun. It might be a good opportunity. It was interesting. He was selling security packages that were leases, not purchases. They were leases to the customer. Now, this was back in the day when the customer did not have to initial many, many boxes on a contract. All they had to do was sign the bottom of the contract. On the back of the contract was a lot of boilerplate. In other words, that's a term describing fine print. Lots of fine print explaining to the customer that this was not a purchase, but a long-term lease. Well, 5 years. A 5-year lease. Now, silly me, I was brand new in sales. I felt obligated to tell the customer about the fact that this was a lease. Now, I say silly me, I would do it today too. But I just thought it was the honest thing to do. Here they are signing the document that commits them to a 5-year lease, and I wanted them to know about that so I could sleep well at night. So of course I told them about it. Well, there was a sales meeting not long after I joined the company when my friend from Toastmasters, who was the owner of this company, called everybody together and looked at us with kind of a stern look on his face. And he asked, does anybody here explain to the customer that this is a lease? And I didn't speak up. No one spoke up. And he smiled and he said, good, that means I don't have to fire anybody. This was a dagger in my heart when I realized that I had joined a company based on a friendship, and I saw this other side to my friend. Now, he went on to explain that we're not defrauding the customer, but that the customer is an adult, and the customer has an obligation to read all the terms in the contract. But who does? Who reads all the fine print? What customers do, especially maybe customers who are not that fluent in English, they look to the sales representative with trusting eyes, if they trust him or if they trust her. And if they're comfortable with that salesperson, they will sign the contract. At any rate, I didn't speak up. I never changed. I continued without telling anybody, informing every customer that it was a lease. And I lost sales because of that, because the customers didn't want a lease. I felt better losing the sale than losing sleep for misrepresenting a product. Well, this idea of not speaking up also happened in the airline industry. Flying is very, very safe. Don't let this photograph give you the wrong impression. Flying is extremely safe. But back in the late 80s and early 90s, there were a number of crashes here in the United States, American pilots. And the airlines crash analysts began to get a picture that co-pilots, the gentleman or the lady on the right here were not speaking up in time, voicing their concerns to the captain. In fact, one of their surveys, and I hope nobody's afraid of flying because this is kind of shocking. One of their surveys revealed that 40% of the co-pilots interviewed admitted to not communicating their concerns to the chief pilot. And the black box recording, actually they're not black boxes, they're orange boxes that survived the wrecks. And these recordings are not only of instruments and altitude and that sort of thing and speed, but also of conversations in the flight deck. And they revealed that the co-pilots were going, but they wouldn't bring it up until it was too late. Why didn't they? Well, they didn't want to question the authority of the pilot, the captain of the plane, who could give them a poor recommendation. I don't know if you knew this, but most pilots and co-pilots are strangers until that very flight. So they don't know each other well enough to maybe feel freely to communicate. So, if I can get this to go, the airlines responded with what they call CRM, Crew Resource Management. And the industry recognized that pilots are human. The captain is a human being. He or she can be tired or confused or distracted. By the way, this thing about being tired, the life of a commercial airlines pilot is not as glamorous as you might think. I've read articles where these people sleep in bunks, in sleeping rooms, in airport warehouses. These are not five-star hotels. This is a place where they can grab some sleep before they go on to the next flight. So they are human. And the co-pilot is now accountable for raising his voice or her voice to the pilot, raising their concerns. And not only the co-pilot, but the entire flight crew is now accountable. What I mean is they can be fired if it is determined through investigations that they weren't speaking up. So the fear of being fired, of being accountable, now made them much more vocal. And the surveys reveal that the captains appreciated this policy. So this is what we want. We want captain and co-pilot to feel free to communicate at all times, especially this co-pilot who is in the subservient position. Here is the leader. Again, the leader could be tired, he could be irritable, he could be distracted, and the co-pilot might be afraid of raising an issue that might be interpreted as questioning his judgment. But now they feel obligated to raise that issue or they could be fired. Now, obviously, I'm not going to have a handout. This is from a regular ground class. But I am asking you in discussion board to recall a time and to share a time on discussion board when you were uncomfortable with your manager who wanted, or supervisor or boss or whoever, who wanted you to do something or agree to something or be quiet about something that you thought bordered on being unethical or that may have been downright obviously unethical. Now, when you do this on discussion board, use fictitious names, don't mention the name of the company, but be specific in the dilemma that you were being confronted with. Tell us how you felt. Did you speak up? If you did, more power to you. Did you not speak up? Oh, by the way, if you did speak up, were you punished for it? Were there repercussions? Did you not speak up, and did you feel kind of bad afterwards? And did you determine never to go through that again? At any rate, I think this will be an interesting discussion. I know it is in my ground classes, and have fun with it, but have a conversation too. All right. That's it for this screencast. Thank you. Bye-bye now.